bringing us back to your blog. So
Yes.
you start the blog off with, and I always remind when I start reading your stuff, I'm like, yeah, these aren't the people, sounding the alarm here are not exactly people that don't know what they're talking about. I use a double negative here. They're people that know what the hell they're talking about, right?
Yeah,
So we
right.
got Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Nick Bostrom, Stephen Hawking, Steve Wozniak, the godfather of AI, Jeffrey Hinton. I can go on and on and on. They're all basically saying, holy crap, slow down and or
Right.
regulate quickly.
Right.
So again, going back to why no one's really listening. Now, maybe maybe I'm not up on some of the legislation coming and what the government's doing, at least in the U.S. I mean, other countries gets a little. We'll talk about that in a sec too. But generally speaking, I mean, what's the general concern from all these really smart people that have either invented AI or understand it better than the rest of us, folks like Elon? These guys, they know what the hell they're talking about. What are they kind of specifically saying is a potential outcome of this that we do not want?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think they have the same concerns we do as far as a broad array of, job losses is one. Like, okay, well, yes, that's always happened with technology, and AI is different. This is, creative arts and all sorts of things. Um, there's privacy, uh, security. There's I mean, the existential risks that's where Nick Bostrom and even Sam Altman and a few of the top brass at OpenAI just put a statement on their website about the need to regulate it because of artificial superintelligence. So
now, for people listening, what you just said, Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI, the
yes,
creator of ChatGPT.
yes,
So
and
for
yeah,
for anyone looking to have sort of there's his only agenda, you would think, would be government, get out of my way and let me do my thing, and he's doing the opposite. So that right there should be pretty telling.
yes, yes. And he was in Washington, I think it was last week, and spoke with lawmakers, and he had dinners with them, and he spoke, and he basically urged lawmakers to regulate AI. So he knows what's up,
So he's
and he
basically
knows.
saying, regulate me, please regulate me.
Yes,
I mean,
because he knows.
yeah,
Yes, because capitalism will not regulate itself. He
correct.
can't, but he knows. And I made the comparison to F1 in the blog. But like, if everyone's regulated, then everyone is playing within the same parameters, and then it's competitive again.
Right.
So it's like, okay, it's a race is on. But there is a track that we have to follow, and there's
Right.
guardrails up, and there's protective equipment, but we're still going to try to beat our competitors around the track. And
Like
that's,
baseball and steroids, right? Hey, let's all
yeah,
not take steroids together, and they'll all take everything they can up to the limit of whatever's legal. And it's sort of,
right,
it's kind
right,
of sort of
right.
the, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is a good analogy with that. And, but I think he knows that there's some really weird things that can happen. Anyone in AI, and Ezra Klein wrote an article on this, and he said that it was something like the secret that Silicon Valley will tell you if you are listening is like the AI engineers want it regulated. The
Mm.
only reason is they're just like doing their job, but they know if you connect the dots moving forward, things could get really weird. And I'm not really worried about it right now, but like if we left it unregulated, 5, 10, 20, 50 years, we're like, oh my God, this is going to be orders of magnitude more powerful, and some weird things can happen there. And I think that's the unknowns when we're like, what exactly are the risks? Someone recently, I read an article like they were critical of Nick Bostrom's book Superintelligence, which came out in
Mm.
2014, and he was like, well, he talks about all these warnings, but he didn't say exactly what AI would do. Like, how could it, destroy humanity? And they're, it's like nanotechnology that it really, there's just like, there's not. I'm not really worried about that far out. I'm more worried about, humans using AI to attack one another, like it doing something on Wall Street and like wiping out a day's worth of
Right.
trades, or or banks, like it
Yep.
goes into a banking system or takes down the electrical grid. So it's
Yes.
not. I think that
I'm
the
with you
whole,
there. Yeah.
yeah,
See, I
it's more
think
like
people
that.
think, yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but yes, that's a really good point. When people step back and they think of these dystopian AI futures and they think of physical, and again, I think we talked about this a little bit last time, but they picture robots and physical devices flying from the
Yes.
sky or marching down
Yeah.
the streets like Terminator. But that is, I think, way, that's again, I 100% believe that's
Yeah.
possible, but that's requiring the physical, mechanical part
Yeah.
to be up to speed with the brain
Yes.
part. And right now, the brain part is even more. It's smart enough now to, like Tio said, bring down Wall Street, because Wall Street's all connected. It's all the internet. Yeah,
Yep.
there's firewalls and all this other stuff, but everything's bypassable. Everything is. If it's electrically
Yep.
connected, you can get to it. Right. That's what hackers have taught us for eons.
Right.
The electrical grid. The entire internet, or sensor systems on aircraft, and just anything, like, oh, you think you're in this part of the world, you're actually in this part of the world. I mean, you could go on and on and on. That electrically connected, the electrically connected world we have could be completely, penetrated by
Yes.
a bot that has real high levels of intelligence, and it doesn't have to turn into anything physical. Right? It doesn't have to be any physical bot walking down the street or flying through the air. It
Correct.
could be
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
ones and zeros that are affecting our lives, because our entire lives are dictated by ones and zeros. I'm talking to you right now,
Yes.
and the only thing
Yep.
that's happening is ones and zeros and electrical pulses flying across the cabling, and the country, and through the oceans.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
so, I don't think some don't really appreciate how, how our entire existence and survival is contingent upon ones and zeros, right? Electricity, heat, everything, money,
Right.
the ability to buy something down the street. I mean, the days of like taking dollar bills out and everyone only accepting cash. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't do it. The banks don't work. What do you do? Do you have 100,
Right.
100 grand in your basement, and then will anyone accept 100? It's just,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what scares me. So you touched on something
Yeah.
really important there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's in deep fakes. That's another one of
Yeah.
like in people trying to influence elections by having AI bots infiltrate social media and act like humans, and
Right.
like then they're optimized, by, they could like go through an individual's entire history on the internet and like look at what will push their buttons and pull their strings, and the AI is like making statements to sway people.
Sure.
Again, not apocalyptic, but it's like, really, like we need to make sure stuff like that's not going to happen. And actually, I'm optimistic because of Sam Altman and Elon. I mean, it's going to be regulated. Washington has got their eyes on this, and the good news is Republicans and Democrats are equally concerned. It's a nonpartisan issue in that it doesn't have the baggage that gun control and abortion and there's
Climate
so many
change.
other
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that divide us. Everybody wants enough, like jobs. Okay, will it wipe out jobs? I think a lot will be, but as soon as it does, people like the Writers Guild of America, that's, I think they're still on strike, but one of the stipulations in their contract disputes with the studios is no Chat GPT writing the screenplays and stuff. So
Mm.
that's one of their stipulations. They're already drawing lines. And I think if programming jobs are lost too many too quickly, and then you have just tons of people out of jobs
Right.
because they got displaced by an AI, those people will be very loud,
Yeah.
and say, hey, and that's when, and that affects the left and right equally. And they'll say, okay, we gotta figure out a middle way here, not to just stifle innovation totally, but we've got to be protective of
Well,
jobs.
that is a good point. Every single, I think every sort of crisis we've ever faced, that I can remember, from climate to abortion to COVID to, I go on and on and on, has almost immediately become a left versus right thing, where one side believed it was real, the other side didn't believe it was real at all, or to
Right.
some degree. So, and in that case, you get very little done because you can't, Congress can't
Yes.
move together. So you have basically fighting while the problem and the crisis just kind of continues to evolve. But your point of, if this stays across, I guess, on both sides of the aisle and doesn't pick a side, and that would be positive. That would
Yeah.
be how we actually can get shit done. Yeah.
It could actually bring America closer together, like agreeing on an issue. And, like 9/11, that brought left and right together for a while until it got like, who are we going to attack, and Iraq and all
Yeah. Good
that
point. Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And COVID didn't, and that was disheartening, that like even a pandemic couldn't bring Americans together. However, I think this sounds weird, but like if it had been more, lethal, more deadly, because its infected fatality rate was only like, I don't know, it was like 0.3 or 0.4%. And,
Yeah.
but if it had been 20%,
Right. Which we
like,
originally thought it was. Yeah.
yes,
Originally,
yeah, or
the
even
first few weeks. Yeah.
5%,
Yeah.
and it affected the young as much as the elder, like kids were
Yes.
dying,
We would have come
I
together.
guarantee you the left and right would have been more on the same. If your people, their loved ones were dying left
Yeah.
and right around you, they left and right our political parties would have gotten together, and this would have been less divisive. But because it was on that, you know, margin that was like, well, how much liberty do we give up when it's like not that deadly
Right. I think we
compared
could look in the
to.
rearview mirror. I know even this is controversial, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Can we look back? Now, we were scared and we reacted, but some remained to keep that fear factor alive more than others, and that was exhausting. But
Yeah,
but you're
I
right.
agree.
If it got, and I think Sam Harris try to make that point at one point. I know he got a lot of shit for it, but I think he gave a talk where I don't know if it was on his podcast or where, but I thought he had made some point that if it was worse, well, actually, I might be misspeaking there. He made some comment about if it was worse than something, but I think he was trying to make a left. He was trying to make a point for the left because he
Yeah.
tends to lean that way. I don't remember exactly what it was, so maybe I'm off there. But you're right. If it was much worse, and Senator X from the right and Congressman Y from the left both had their children die from this thing, the baby.
Yep.
I mean, then after that, all bets are off,
It-
right? All
yep.
bets are off.
They
Yeah.
everyone, because I generally believe that humans will, rise up and get their act together when there's a clear common,
Yeah.
like, World War II, America got together, but Vietnam,
Yeah.
that did we really need to go there? And then you get the split. But I think AI, the thing is that we want to be my thing would be, I think we need to be more proactive, because do we really want to experience, like, I don't know, something where all of our airline things get scrambled for a week or two because some AI, hacked into our whole flight
Right.
control, air traffic control, and screwed everything up, and all the planes are grounded. It's not like, I don't think it's going to take over all the planes and they're all going to crash and stuff like that. It'd be more like, oh, this is now all your flights are canceled and your vacation is, because our whole computer system is screwed up, and now we have to like reboot and like kick out the AIs that were invasive,
Right.
and that's the kind of thing that I think will more likely happen
Mm-hmm.
in the near future. But if we regulate it, then we won't suffer some of those. But we're not very good at prevention. Like our
Yeah.
healthcare system isn't based
Right.
on prevention. It's like reactive, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Well,
So
it's
that's kind of the
incentives.
rub.
We incentivize reaction, right? I mean, that's
Yes.
big pharma
Yep.
does not want prevention. Sorry if you're listening,
Right.
big pharma. You want reaction so you can make more pills. The jig is up.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I
don't think I
know.
don't
I
think that's a
know.
secret.
You
Yeah.
don't want us all exercising and eating healthy and, just enjoying the outdoors,
Right.
and
Right.
like, because hey, what if the depression rates were halved and people didn't take as many antidepressants,
Right.
oh, geez, now you've just lost billions of dollars, and yeah, I hate to be the cynic, but we all know there's a dark underbelly of capitalism, and
Yeah, to your
that's
point,
part of it.
it doesn't reward happiness; it rewards profit, right? I mean,
Yep, yep,
so let's touch on Chaos GPT. When you're
yes,
linking that, in that blog, I said, oh gosh, that was just a matter of time. So explain what happened
yep.
with Chaos GPT.
Well, I only know from the article I read, but someone created, because like OpenAI has their open sourced GPT.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have all these tools. Meta, I think, just released theirs. So, people can now adapt these tools, and mostly people will create good, beneficial tools
Right.
for AI. But we all know there's some knuckleheads out there and rabble rousers. Maybe they're pranksters and stuff, or maybe they're, like the Ted Kaczynskis of,
Mm.
the internet. And they're just like very bright computer people that are unhappy and hate humanity. And they're like, okay, screw everybody. I'm going to, and someone created Chaos GPT with intent of destroy humanity, and released it. In the article I read, I think it was in Futurism. There's a few articles about it, but it got kicked off Twitter because it was like tweeting things about how we should just rise up and destroy humanity, or encouraging people to do stuff. What I read was it was really clumsy. It sounded like something from a 80s movie with the bad guy like Dr. Evil would do. Like it
Yeah.
was just not really going. But it's like, I'm not worried about Chaos GPT now, but in 10 years, when
Mm-hmm.
it's hundreds of times more powerful and someone does that, one person with that adapts an AI and makes it autonomous and says, hey, you have free will, I'm no guardrails, you go out and do what you can to destroy humanity or screw up as many things as possible, figure it out yourself, what would cause the most disruption to human civilization. It could be disruption,
Mm-hmm.
not destroy, but disruption, so that it does look at, air traffic control, I can do that. Let's see, how will I do it? Well, it's autonomous and it's really bright, like 1,000 times brighter than GPT 4.0. Well, it can figure stuff out like that we can't. And
Right.
it's just way ahead of us, just like Gary Kasparov. Like, you can't beat chess anymore
Mm-hmm.
because it can outthink you. And Alpha Go beat the top Go player, and it's just thinking at a different level. So that's the kind of thing I'm worried about for the future, and that we should have guardrails in place now to prevent the bad actors, bad players from getting their hands on AI and doing
Mm.
something. And then the other one we talked about is recursive self-improvement, and that's the
Mm.
road to super intelligence in the singularity and stuff about, well, what happens when these AIs they're better at everything than us, and they're better than us at improving them. So instead of
Right.
OpenAI creating Chat GPT 10.0, 9.0 is smart enough to say, well, you don't have to do it, I'll do it. And it goes from 10.0 to 50.0 or
Right.
1,000.0 in a year or 6 months or a month. I mean, we don't even know. That's the part when you like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and some of those, I think they're going, when that happens, like there's a good likelihood that it'll happen at some point. We don't know when, but when it happens, we don't know and can't know what it will do, what a recursive self-improving AI could do, because we've never encountered it before. And because we've never encountered it before, this is where I'm like the precautionary principle. It's like, I'm I'm not a libertarian, and I know there's some people's like, hey, free market, free, like let every, and it's like, show me a free completely free society in the history of the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? There isn't one. And you know why
Right.
there
Right.
isn't one? Because it doesn't work like communism doesn't work. There's certain things that don't work. Communism doesn't work because we didn't evolve to think of doing good in the moment for the collective. So that's never going to work. And neither is complete freedom, because that gives you chaos and bad actors and people, freeloaders, and, all sorts of people take advantage of. It'd be anarchy, complete
Right.
freedom. You want some, but not too much. So, there's a middle ground. And when it comes to existential risks to society, that survey of AI scientists in 2022, 10% median said that AIs could be an extinction event, or cause like major damage to civilization at some point. And I'm like, I'm not comfortable with 10%,
Mm.
like that just makes, I'm like 10%. I don't want to roll the dice on that. I want some more guardrails. And, wherever we land, it is an existential question of how much risk are we willing to tolerate as we bull rush forward with AI. And I'm like, I don't have that higher risk tolerance. Like, what are we hoping to gain anyway? Like, what's the rush?
Right.
Where are we trying to get to so fast?
Yeah. Capitalism, right? Out innovate and
Yeah,
do something that's going to make me, my company, whoever, a lot of money. I think that's the overall, and there's
that's what they're.
generally
Yeah,
intellectual curiosity in a lot of the engineers, right? I think, but
yes, I think that's part of it too.
yeah.
Like, this is Ezra Klein talks a lot about that. That some of the this really good book that Ezra Klein liked, I read recently. Highly recommend it to you. It's called God, Human, Animal, Machine.
Mm.
And it's this woman who used to be like a Christian, evangelical Christian, and she was very thoughtful, super bright, great writer and thinker. And then she's paralleling like how people kind of lost faith, and especially like Silicon Valley type, but then they glom on to this idea of the singularity, like Ray Kurzweil, and we'll have immortality, will upload our
Right.
consciousness to the cloud, and so it's almost become its own religion.
Yeah.
And so people within Silicon Valley, there's a group of them that feel like it's our destiny to push this human evolution to this next phase of existence.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they're like, yes, boldly go where humanity's never gone before, and we are the ones ushering in this new era. What a
Right.
privilege, and I'm like, I'm not on board with that thinking.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, even Musk himself, right? Elon, he originally funded OpenAI, I think, right?
Yes,
And then,
he
and
did.
he's obviously a
He's
big
one of the.
proponent of AI. I mean, Teslas don't auto drive without AI. That's kind of how it works, right? And now he's kind of
Yeah,
like, whoa, 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 hey, so it is a push pull sort of thing where
it
I feel like
is.
these super smart people are super driven by the innovation that it'll bring,
Yes.
while at the same time
Yeah.
probably saying, "Uh-oh, what are we doing here?" It's almost like the Manhattan Project. I remember reading some of the, when Oppenheimer, and when I think he was something about him asking Einstein for some equation sort of thing, and you could just, there was some dialogue, and I might be it's just destroying this reference, but there was some dialogue where they just got like, "What are we doing here?" Like they felt
Yes.
driven, they felt the need to do it to protect against the existential threat that they saw, but at the same time they saw they were creating an existential threat, and they're like, it was kind of
Right.
that, what do we do here? But
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
but this one I think is, even to your point earlier, this is not, I think folks need to understand like linear versus exponential growth, and in those kind of those geeky graphs, because it's not just another thing, right? If you look at, like, again, to your point earlier, drew a line from, human existence on a big, along that bottom x-axis is time. Everything we're talking about, has happened. You can't even see the dot on the graph. Like you can't even, you have to zoom in,
Exactly.
zoom in, zoom in. You can't even see that dot, and that, and technology evolves, exponentially based on itself. So before technology was a thing, there was nothing. Everything was so slow and so very, very just kind of incremental. Now it's just the technology itself creates itself, it evolves itself. So it's this kind of recursive, constant exponential growth that
Yes.
we're not, you can't look at the past and determine the rate of change in the future, I guess.
Right, exactly. And that's what people miss.
Yep.
They're basing their prediction of the future on the past with a more even linear.
Right.
And it's like once we created AI, we accelerated. I mean, even technology and computer technology and Moore's law and all that, it's like this, but this with AI, it could go from, we were going here to kind of like
Almost
here,
straight up and down. Yeah. Yeah.
almost
Right.
straight up to especially the recursive self-improvement. But like GPT 3.5 passed the bar at the 10 percentile, and GPT 4.0 passed it at the 90th percentile. And so we went in 5 months, or it came out in March, so we went from November 30th to like mid-March, and GPT 4 came out, and it went from bottom 10% to top 10%.
Right.
And it like passes, like all these different like standardized tests. It like aces a whole bunch of them.
Right.
And whatever people criticize it for, oh, well, I tried to have it do this and it was kind of dumb. It gave me, it's like right now, but look at
Give
what
it
it
a minute.
already
Yeah.
can do.
That's right.
And no, whatever it can't do isn't going to last. Like I was thinking, well, I saw are you Raiders of the Lost Ark fan? I imagine
Haven't
you
seen him in a
enjoyed,
while, but I love that whole
but
series. Yeah.
enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I saw at Guardians of the Galaxy the trailer for the new Indiana Jones film, and it looked like they had flashbacks of him in the story arc that they were creating. They had flashbacks of a young Indy of like the Harrison Ford in his 40s, like from the 1980s. But I think they were deep fake technologies of him young, right? And they'll be able to do this. They've already done it with Pope Francis, but like the deep fake technology. And it's like, well, I was like, man, what would be cool is they could. I was a big Game of Thrones fan, and that season 8 was like, they could use that technology and redo season 8 and 9. They could go, multiple seasons, and you don't have to have the sets. You don't have to have the actors. You
Right.
don't like, you could replicate their voices perfectly. And even if it's a little, sketchy right now, it's only a couple years away before it's indistinguishable
Right.
from the actual actors. And it's like, well, that's great. You'll save on all this money, production costs, but if you're an actor or a cinematographer or a
Right.
screenwriter, it's like, oh, well, okay, that's not the end of the world, but how are we going to deal with that? Like the freedom to create, but then
Right.
it can, when is it? A Clockwork Orange,
Right.
of
Yeah.
sorts.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, but
Yeah.
amazing at the same time. Like I love GPT, and now I'm like looking at all the tools, and I'm like, okay, there's all these AI tools to help me for writing and
Yeah.
maybe do videos, and then I'm like, okay, now I start looking at them. I'm overwhelmed by the number of tools, and I'm like,
Right.
which tool do I use? And then I'm like, well, everybody else is going to be using tools, so I need to get ahead or I'll be left behind, or at least I got to keep up. And so then you start, and then you're like, oh man, I'm just on another treadmill of sorts
You
where
are.
we're
Yeah.
running faster and faster. And it's like, where am I going with all this?
Right. Right. Do I want to just tread water with everybody else? Like, is that what I want to do? Is that the goal?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's either sink or swim, like you either like learn to keep up with, but it's still like this world accelerating so fast that we're on overload,
Yeah.
it's just too much to keep up with. And then we're losing track, to me, of the foundations of our happiness. So even though technology keeps changing and evolving, the roots of our happiness have not changed in thousands of years. So whether it's Jesus saying, look at the lilies of the field, they neither toil nor spin, or, the Buddha all the teachings of the roots of suffering is attachment, and all this stuff. It's like the Stoic philosophers, all those things, they apply now more than
Yeah.
ever. We need to double down on those, but we keep like chasing the technology like that's going to be, I'll be more productive and I'm going to make more money and then I'm going to create more stuff and then I'm going to
To
what?
what end?
Like
Like, yeah.
to
And
what
then you're going to
end? What?
die for sure.
Yeah,
And you just made more,
or
you just
not.
made more trash. Well,
We'll have the
that's where it
yeah.
gets scary. Cause that's, and
I
I say
know.
scary cause it is, and I said this to you, I think last time, it's like, could this be just the next step in our evolution where we
Yeah,
realize both almost in parallel that we humans are starting to realize, whether consciously or subconsciously, that these machines are going to win, that we created. So don't slow it down, but accelerate it so we can get our conscious into it. So we go from a carbon-based life to a silicon-based life and continue our journey into the future and don't die off.
yeah,
It's I mean, it's equal parts fascinating and scary for me anyway. And then,
yeah,
I talk
yeah,
about this with my family, like, God doesn't want that to happen. They go back and I'm like, oh, maybe, but maybe not. Like, if we get into that kind of the spiritual
yeah,
question, like, well, what does this mean for, we
yeah.
touched on this last time, right? You and I with Christian background. And it's like, well, what is that?
Yes.
What are we doing here?
Yeah. Like
Like,
like God created us because like we were the epitome of like the highest form of creation, but then we create something that's superior to us that evolves and then it's
right.
like, wait a second, I don't know. Was that
Right.
his plan originally? Were we,
Yeah, is this
we're
another
just
arc
a stepping
situation where he's going to
stone?
just like, all right, everyone build a freaking boat because I got to wipe you guys out and start over? Like, is it another one of
Yeah,
those?
I know.
I do think that
Yeah, or
sometimes.
yeah, the other is like longevity drugs, like a super smart AI within the next 5 or 10 years, they could make headway on longevity that, slows down the aging process. And then if you slow it down enough, eventually it could stop it or reverse it.
Well,
And I'm
I
like,
sent you a note on quantum computers where, right, I think
yeah,
now quantum computers go mainstream, and by the time they go sort of more mainstream, or at least more ubiquitous, I guess, and the AI is going to be I mean, just think Chat GPT 100, 150.
oh
By
my
that point,
God.
quantum computers and that type of AI, I think in no time it could crack the whole, the never
The
die code,
super,
or
yeah. Oh
immortality. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
because it can run models, trillions and trillions of models like a second or whatever. And
Wow.
I mean, they're already looking at. They found out that if I can just stop that telomere. What is it? The telomere length of within the body. If
Yeah,
they could just
yeah.
stop that from shortening or whatever,
Uh,
then
yeah.
that's just something embedded in some genetic code somewhere, isn't it?
Right.
Right? Like, aging doesn't have to be a
Yeah.
thing. It's a
Right.
thing that's embedded in us. Once we find a way that the exact, now maybe we have. I don't know. I'm very much a layman in this world, but maybe they already found that. But once you just find the mechanism that's causing that telomere length to shorten and stop it,
Right.
then you
Right.
literally don't ever age. It's got to be something that scares me. I don't
Yeah.
want to. I'd like the normal trajectory of, you know, like life and middle age and old age and death, and I don't
Well,
mind that.
and
I guess.
yeah, and that's I read this book recently, really good. It's called 4,000 Weeks, and it's about time and our relationship with time. And 4,000 weeks is based on that's how long we live, roughly 80 years and 50 weeks
Yeah,
per year.
they make that calendar 4kweeks.com. Is that the
Oh yeah,
have you
maybe
tried?
it's related
Yeah,
to
if you go
this
to
guy. I haven't.
4kweeks.com, they have the calendar, and I'll be honest with you,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's you fill out the circles at the end of every week of your life, and it shows it could be, perceived as a little bit morbid. I think it's very motivating, frankly.
Uh-huh.
And it's, I mean, I'm like, I personally want to get that calendar because I think it's, for me, it'd be very motivating. You literally every day, you when you order it, you say your date of birth and whatnot, so it gives you basically the number of circles. So every day, I guess on a Sunday night or Saturday, whatever the end of your week is, quote unquote, you fill out a circle. So you see how many circles you filled out and how many circles are left to fill out.
Oh my
To
God.
it's like, I think Peter Attia, is someone I follow, and he's a medical doctor, and he's big into longevity, and he was on Rogan's podcast talking about it, who made me think about it. And he had it. I think he had it up in his office, and a lot of his coworkers were like, Peter, that is just Dr. Tia, that is just the most morbid thing.
Yeah.
And for a while he felt the same way. Then he took a step back and said, no, it's empowering. And it's encouraged him to travel more for work, to give less talks and be away from his family more. So he's making decisions more cognizant of his, his mortality. And I'm like, I think that's generally a positive. If, why am I chasing another big score or another big job or another big bonus when I have two beautiful kids and a beautiful wife and they just want to go play in the backyard? Like, wait a minute, maybe if that poster or things like that make me choose, the latter over the former, then that post is worth a lot more than the $100 they're asking or whatever, in my opinion.
Yeah. And playing with our kids in the backyard, that is the good life. Like we keep chasing this next thing around the corner, the grass is always greener. And it's like, these are the good old days. And if we can learn to embrace them and quit chasing that next thing with this idea that then I'll be happy, because it's like, no, we only live in this present moment, and we've got to learn to, embrace it the best way we can. And a lot of the suffering comes from thinking, oh, I'll be happy when, this happens. And if I get this job, and it's like, but we know from our history, whether it's a new car, a new job, or hedonic adaptation, we adapt to it relatively quickly. Sure. No new phone is going to, or new gadget's going to make us happy. Now it's like we have, you're around my age, a little younger, but at least when I was young, the idea that you could have, in your a little device that has all the songs you could ever want to listen to. Right. You can watch all the videos and movies and games and connect with all your friends and have access to any information about any topic, anytime, even have an AI chatbot on there to talk to. Wouldn't that make you happy? And it's like, no, we have it all. And we're not, isn't that enough proof? We're less happy. Chasing
we're
more?
By far less happy.
Right.
I don't mean to make that statement as if I know is definitive, but I think we are we generally less happy? Or is it because we are best. You could look at where we are today and it was like, oh, would you want to go back to, I have friends who say, I want to go back to the 80s because we grew up and we're picture us, all the memes, we riding bikes at night and it was the good old days. I'm like, yeah, but I like medical technology, right? My, I friends, grandparents, they're getting knee replacements and they're running and they're in their 70s.
Yeah.
There's amazing things out there that I don't want to give up. So I like the current, but maybe it's, I don't know, but I don't, famine's going down, right? World hunger is on the decline. All that's good. I think technologies, all the stuff that we're doing is good, but I don't know. At least maybe it's a first world sort of view on the world where I just see the antidepressants and you just get a feel that, and I'm in the Washington, D.C. area. I just observe my surroundings all the time. And I just see mad chaos of people chasing something, myself included. Yes. I'm right there this is not me holier than thou. I'm right in it. I'm like, what do I, and when you start to talk to people, everyone that's a thinking person sort of agrees, I don't know why we do all this shit. But generally, are we happier? I know we're off the AI topic, but whatever.
It's all related in a way, because part of chasing AI is that it's going to deliver something that it cannot deliver. Happiness. That's not the route to happiness. If we're chasing, more productive isn't, better doesn't mean good. Better doesn't mean happy. Better doesn't even mean better. Oftentimes is but we're chasing it as if it's going to deliver something that we don't have right now, but it won't deliver that, and it can't deliver it. Now, the caveat is in our day-to-day lives, because I have an AI, let's say we have Siri, AI that's really interactive and you have this appointment and you want me to order something from DoorDash and order me this and blah, it's like, oh yeah, we will habituate to that,
Right.
and it will just seem normal after a while. And even all the productivity tools, and let's assume it doesn't wipe out jobs, but we're just way more productive, but everybody's more productive. Now it just becomes the new normal of using
Right.
AIs to be more productive. And we're right back where we started. So as we chase what AI has to offer with this, it's the red herring again, like this, oh, if we have this, then that's going to make everything better. The caveat I'd put is if it cures Alzheimer's, there will be more happiness because Alzheimer's causes a lot of suffering
Right.
in its way. Cure cancer. Oh my God, that would, cancer causes lots of suffering. So there are those ways, but in our day-to-day existence, just AI is not gonna chasing it is not gonna improve our happiness, and that's what I'm concerned is it exacerbates evolutionary mismatch, because as
Yes.
technology goes
Right.
up and we chase it, our biological roots have stayed the same. So we keep chasing it, and it takes us further and further away from, the basics of happiness, which mostly is each other and interpersonal relationships.
Right.
That's where
Right.
the biggest root of happiness is. And I think we fill our lives full of so much technology that we start to lose sight of playing with our kids, stopping and smelling the roses of, getting off the treadmill, the hedonic treadmill that keeps going faster and faster, but we're running and getting to nowhere.